Alright, just tell me, am I the monster here? Or is completely nuking a 2-year relationship over one stupid joke the most insane overreaction in history? Because that's what happened. I'm asking genuinely. One minute I'm having after-work drinks with my team, laughing, and the next, Aaron has vanished from my life. I mean, completely. Phone number blocked, socials deactivated or I'm blocked, Venmo, even our shared grocery list app. Poof. It's like he was a ghost who decided to stop haunting my apartment. And the thing that's driving me absolutely insane is that he's not this guy. Aaron was the steady one, the calm one, the man who spent an entire weekend assembling a ridiculously complicated IKEA bookshelf for me, humming the whole time because he knew I wanted it. He's the one who builds solid, lasting things with his hands. He'd listen to my ridiculous work drama for hours, nodding patiently before telling me it would all be okay. He was my anchor in the constant, swirling storm of my own life. We were good, we were solid. We were literally scrolling through listings for 2-bedroom apartments last week. He was talking about needing extra space for a proper workshop. I was talking about needing better light for my plants. It was real, and now nothing. Just a deafening silence and the cold, empty space on his side of the bed. I keep expecting to hear his keys in the door, all because of a joke. A dumb throwaway line that wasn't even really about him, not in a mean way. It was just a punchline. He has to be overreacting, right? Someone please tell me this is just some massive, dramatic tantrum and he'll walk back through that door any minute, annoyed but here. Because the alternative is that I really did destroy everything in 5 seconds, and I just can't bring myself to believe that. I work in public relations. The fancy kind where the office is all glass and minimalist furniture, and the clients are sleek, soulless tech startups or luxury lifestyle brands. It's a world built entirely on perception. My job is literally to make things appear more valuable, more desirable, more successful than they actually are. That culture bleeds into everything. Lunch isn't about eating, it's about being seen at the right Michelin-adjacent bistro. Weekends aren't about resting. They're about having a story to tell on Monday that involves a boutique hotel or a gallery opening. My colleagues are masters of this game. They speak a language of casual wealth I've had to learn like a foreign dialect. They drop names of obscure European designers and complain about the capital gains tax on their crypto investments. They're not bad people, not really, but they are a tough, judgmental crowd. To survive, you have to perform. My performance is being the witty one. The one with the sharp, self-deprecating humor that occasionally veers into just sharp, it's my armor. It's how I prove I belong behind the glass walls. That I'm not just some girl from a normal middle-class background who got lucky and is one bad quarter away from being found out. Aaron's world was the complete opposite. He was a woodworker, a custom furniture designer. His workshop, a rented space in a dusty industrial park, smelled of cedar and sawdust and turpentine. It was a scent that clung to his clothes and felt more real and grounding than any $300 bottle of perfume my boss wore. He didn't just build things, he created them. He'd spend weeks on a single dining table, talking about the grain of the walnut like it was a person's life story. He was proud of his work with a quiet, profound intensity that I secretly envied. His hands, often calloused and stained with varnish, were the most capable things I had ever seen. They created tangible beauty out of raw material while I just created buzz. That pride was his core, it was his everything. He knew he didn't fit into my world and he didn't care. He was utterly, refreshingly unimpressed by it. We'd talked about it once months ago. We were driving in his beat-up Ford Ranger, a truck he loved more than most people love their pets. I was teasing him about it, calling it a rusty bucket. He just laughed and said, "You can make fun of this old truck all you want, Nat. You can even make fun of my terrible taste in action movies. But don't ever make what I do for a living the punchline. Don't ever talk about my work like it's less than, especially not to your friends." I remember patting his arm, saying of course not, thinking it was sweet and a little dramatic. I didn't understand, it wasn't a suggestion. It was a boundary, a bright, uncrossable red line drawn in sawdust. The scene of the crime was a painfully chic cocktail bar near our office. It was our team's traditional Friday happy hour spot, a place with dim lighting, drinks that cost as much as a good meal, and an ambient noise level perfectly calibrated to encourage gossip. I was 3 Negronis in, feeling that warm, dangerous buzz where my wit feels sharper and my deep-seated insecurities feel blessedly dull. I was performing and the performance was going well. My boss, Cynthia, had just returned from a trip to Milan and was holding court, regaling us with tales of Fashion Week. Then came the prop. She placed her new handbag on the table with a theatrical sigh. It was a sleek architectural thing made of black leather, the kind of bag that has a name and a waiting list and costs more than my first car. The table erupted in the required chorus of oohs and ahs. My colleagues, like a flock of well-dressed birds, leaned in to admire the craftsmanship, the discreet gold logo, the sheer, unapologetic expense of it all. God, Cynthia, it's divine, someone breathed. The structure is just everything. Then Catherine, a junior account exec who always tried a little too hard to be my friend, turned the spotlight on me. Natalie, when are you getting one? You'd look amazing with it. The whole table looked at me expectant. It was a test, a conversational volley I had to return with style. My brain, slick with gin and a desperate, pathetic need to impress, cycled through the options. I could have said, when I get a raise as big as Cynthia's, which would have been funny and flattering to the boss. I could have said, I'm more of a tote bag girl myself, I have too much junk to carry, and changed the subject. I had a dozen safe, easy outs that would have kept the conversation moving and my soul intact. But I didn't take any of them. I saw the opening for a bigger laugh, a better punchline. A joke that would land not just with humor, but with a satisfying thud of shared, unspoken class assumptions. A joke that would solidify my place in the inner circle. So I laughed, a little too loudly, and leaned back in my chair with a practiced nonchalance. This bag, I said, gesturing towards it with a dismissive wave of my hand. Oh, honey, this would cost Aaron like half a year's salary. I paused for effect, letting the statement hang in the air, letting them all do the mental math. Then I delivered the killing blow. I love him to death, but the man works with his hands. He's an artist, not an ATM, you know. The laughter that followed was exactly what I'd craved. It wasn't just a chuckle, it was a wave of knowing, slightly cruel amusement. It was the sound of insiders confirming their shared worldview, the sound of people who understood that some men provide status and some men don't. In that moment, I felt brilliant. I felt included. I felt like I had finally, truly mastered the language of their world. The warmth of their approval washed over me, so intoxicating that it blinded me to everything else. I was the star of the show, the court jester who had just made the perfect, wicked joke. The laughter hadn't even fully died down when a strange shift happened in the atmosphere behind me. It was like a sudden drop in temperature. I turned, still smiling, ready to soak in a bit more of my social victory, and my heart just stopped. There he was, Aaron. Standing just outside the circle of our table, close enough to have heard every single word. He must have just walked in. He was holding a small cardboard tray with 2 cups of coffee from the artisanal place I love. The one he always complained was ridiculously overpriced. His face wasn't angry. It wasn't furious or hurt in a loud, dramatic way. It was worse. It was completely, utterly blank. He looked at me, his eyes holding a kind of profound, quiet disappointment I had never seen before. It was the look you give a stranger who lets you down, not the person you love. The laughter caught in my throat. The warmth from the gin and the approval vanished, replaced by a sudden, icy dread. He didn't say a word. He just looked at me for a second longer, then at the laughing faces of my colleagues, then back at me. He slowly placed the coffee tray on an empty table nearby, turned around, and walked out of the bar. The drive home was the longest 15 minutes of my life. The silence in his truck was a physical thing, heavy and suffocating. I tried to fill it, my voice sounding shrill and desperate. It was just a joke, Aaron, a stupid joke for my stupid boss. You know I don't think that. It didn't mean anything. He didn't respond. He just kept his eyes on the road, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. When we got to our apartment, the silence broke, but not in the way I wanted. He didn't yell. He didn't scream. He walked into our bedroom and pulled his old duffel bag out of the closet. He started opening drawers, taking out his clothes with a calm, methodical efficiency that terrified me. Aaron, talk to me, I pleaded, following him. Please just yell at me. Call me an idiot, anything is better than this. He finally stopped and looked at me. His voice was low and steady, devoid of any heat. I don't mind that you make more money than me, Natalie. I have never ever minded that. He zipped the bag shut. But I do mind that you're ashamed of it. I mind that you think what I do is a joke, and I can't be the punchline you use to make your friends like you. He picked up the bag and walked to the door. We're done. No, I whispered, tears finally starting to stream down my face. You can't just leave, it was one joke. He paused at the door, but he didn't turn around. It wasn't just a joke, it was the truth, wasn't it? And then he was gone. I grabbed my phone, my fingers fumbling as I tried to text him to call him. The message wouldn't deliver. The call wouldn't go through, blocked just like that. The curtain had fallen. The next few days were a blur of denial and a rising tide of indignant anger. My first instinct wasn't shame. It was self-preservation. I needed my narrative to be the right one. I needed validation that his reaction was insane and that I was the wronged party, the victim of a fragile male ego. And where else would I get that validation but from the very audience for whom I had performed? On Monday, I went into the office armed with my story, carefully edited for maximum sympathy. I presented it as a tale of woe. My overly sensitive, blue-collar boyfriend had stormed out over a light-hearted, affectionate joke. He has such a chip on his shoulder about money, I'd say with a theatrical sigh to Catherine by the coffee machine. I was just teasing, you guys were there, it was funny, right? It's not like I actually think he's poor. The response was not what I expected. I was looking for a chorus of agreement, for my colleagues to rally around me, condemn his thin-skinned behavior, and confirm that I was, in fact, still witty and charming. Instead, I was met with a wall of polite, awkward discomfort. Catherine, who had egged me on, suddenly couldn't meet my eye. "Oh wow, that's too bad, Natalie," she mumbled, her face flushing slightly. "I'm sure it'll blow over." Then she remembered a very urgent email she had to send and practically fled back to her desk. I tried again at lunch with a few others from the team. I brought it up casually, framing it as a bizarre, unbelievable story. "You'll never guess what happened after Friday," I began. The reaction was immediate. Utensils clinked against plates. Eyes darted away from mine. My boss, Cynthia, gave me a cool, appraising look over the rim of her wine glass. "Well, relationships are tricky," she said, her tone leaving no room for further discussion. She then pivoted to a question about a client report with surgical precision, effectively shutting the conversation down. No one would engage. It was a masterclass in professional evasion. They'd offer a clipped "I'm sure he'll come around," or a noncommittal "oh, that's rough," and then immediately change the subject to work, to the weather, to anything else. The camaraderie I had felt so intensely on Friday night had completely evaporated. It was like I had broken some unspoken rule. The performance is meant to stay in the bar. No one wants to deal with the messy, real-life consequences. The joke was only funny when it was a shared, abstract cruelty. Now that it had a real victim and a real price tag, my imploded relationship, it was just ugly. The awkward distancing was worse than any lecture. It was a quiet, collective verdict. Their polite evasions and swift topic changes told me everything I didn't want to hear. That they saw my joke for what it was, that they found my current predicament distasteful, and that they had no intention of getting involved. I had sacrificed my relationship for their approval, and in the cold light of day, that approval wasn't just gone, it had never been real in the first place. I was a momentary diversion, a cheap laugh. And now that the show was over and the stage was a mess, my audience had quietly slipped out the back door, leaving me completely, utterly alone with the wreckage. A week passed, a miserable, silent week of me checking my phone every 30 seconds and jumping at every notification, only to be met with food delivery promos and emails from my dental office. I had exhausted every option. I'd even driven to his workshop, but his truck wasn't there and the place was locked up tight. I was starting to lose my mind, clinging to the last shred of hope that this was all a terrible misunderstanding. Then on Saturday morning, my phone rang with an unknown number. My heart leaped. It had to be him calling from a friend's phone. I answered on the first ring, my voice a hopeful squeak. "Oh, Aaron." "It's Olivia," a tired voice said on the other end. Aaron's younger sister, my hope curdled into dread. "Olivia, hi, is he okay? Can you please just tell him I'm so sorry?" There was a long sigh. "He's okay, Natalie, but he asked me to call. He needs you to stop. Stop coming by the shop, stop emailing him from your work address. He needs space." A lot of it. Her voice wasn't angry, just weary, like she was the designated bearer of bad news for the 100th time. "I just want to talk to him," I begged, the words tumbling out. "I know I messed up. It was the stupidest, most horrible thing I've ever said, and I just need to tell him that." "He knows you're sorry," she said quietly. It doesn't matter." That's when the knife twisted. As the call was winding down, after she'd made me promise to leave him alone, she let something slip. It wasn't intentional, I don't think. It was just a final, exhausted thought she voiced out loud. "You know the craziest part, Natalie?" she said, her voice dropping to a whisper of disbelief. "He was on his way to surprise you. He just landed a huge commission, a whole restaurant interior. He was so proud. He'd used the deposit to book that trip to Italy you were always talking about, the one to see the master woodworkers in Florence. He called me right before he left to pick you up, so excited he could barely speak. He said, 'She's gonna be so proud of me, Liv.' He just wanted you to be proud of him." The line went dead, but I kept the phone pressed to my ear. Her words echoed in the total silence of my apartment, each one a separate physical blow. The coffee he was holding, the surprise, the trip, he hadn't come to the bar to check up on me. He had come to celebrate with me. He had come bearing a gift, a dream we had shared, earned with the very hands and the very work I had just publicly mocked for a cheap laugh. The joke wasn't just a joke, it was a betrayal of the most profound and personal kind. It wasn't that I had kicked him when he was down, it was that I had kicked him as he was climbing a mountain for me. And in that moment, all of my self-righteous anger, all of my justifications, they all just crumbled into dust. It's been a few weeks now, the anger is gone, the denial is gone. All that's left is this hollow, echoing quiet in the apartment, punctuated by the faint scent of cedar that still lingers in his closet. The space is filled with the beautiful things he made for us. The smooth, elegant coffee table in the living room, the sturdy bookshelf in the corner, the intricately carved headboard on the bed we used to share. They were once symbols of his love. Now they're just monuments to my failure. My life has become a pathetic two-act play I perform every night. Act 1 is me, sitting on the couch, staring at the furniture, tracing the wood grain with my fingers, and drowning in a sea of what-ifs. Act 2 begins when the self-loathing becomes too much to bear. That's when I pick up my phone. I've been blocked on everything, of course, but Olivia hasn't blocked me. Her profile is private, but I can still see her profile picture and her list of friends. And through that tiny digital keyhole, I can find him. I can find tagged photos from mutual acquaintances. Tonight, I found a new one. It was posted by one of his workshop buddies. It's a group shot from a lakeside barbecue. There are maybe a dozen people, all smiling, holding beers. And there in the middle of it all is Aaron. He's laughing. It's not a polite smile, it's a real, deep belly laugh, the kind I haven't seen from him in months. He looks relaxed, he looks happy, he looks free. The caption on the photo just says, "Celebrating new chapters and good friends." I just stared at that photo, my thumb hovering over the screen, wanting to zoom in to analyze every pixel, as if I could somehow crawl through the phone and back into his life. But I can't, I'm on the outside now forever. The audience I tried so desperately to win over has forgotten I exist. The man I sacrificed for them is building a new life without me. And I'm left here, alone in the dark, the star of a one-woman show in an empty theater, a pathetic clown who told the worst joke of her life and now has to live with the silence that followed.